live. You see they're dry. You see there's no marrow in the bone. You see they're scattered all over the valley. They ain't even full skeletons. I mean, the bones are scattered all over the valley. They're just bones. But answer me a question, Ezekiel. Can these bones live? Ezekiel answers the only way he knows how to answer. Lord, you know. Critical race theory was born out of critical legal theory. Am I teaching y'all something today? There emerged two common beliefs linking all critical race theories. First, white supremacy has subordinated black people and other people of color. That's just a fact. How in the world are you going to fight against that being taught in any school? White supremacy has subordinated black people and other people of color. That's a fact. Why don't you want that to be taught in school? You let your schools teach us that Columbus discovered America. That's a lie. You let your schools teach us that George Washington couldn't tell a lie. That's a lie. You let your schools teach us that some slave owners were beneficent and good slave owners. There were no good slave owners. Anybody who owned people was evil. That's a lie. You let your schools teach us that Abraham Lincoln was good for Negroes. No, Abraham Lincoln was trying to save the Union. And Abe Lincoln himself said if he could save the Union and keep black people in chains, he would do it. That's a lie. Come on, somebody. You let them teach us about a white Jesus. You let them teach us that Native Americans were the aggressors. Come on, somebody. That white folk had a manifest destiny and that the pilgrims were good at Native Americans. That's a lie. All day, every day, you let them teach us lies. All throughout my history in school, I was taught lies. But you got a problem with critical race theory because it teaches the truth that white supremacy has subordinated black people and people of color. The right to bear arms. Let me just back up a little bit and let me take you on back to the late 1960s when Ronald Reagan was the governor of California. And they were oppressing black folk, and a group of men and women known as the Black Panther Party decided that they were going to defend the rights of black folk. And the Black Panthers decided that the Second Amendment wasn't just for white folk. So they strapped themselves with guns and showed up at the Capitol in California. And when they saw them Negroes with guns, come on, somebody. That's why I say if you ever really want to get gun laws changed, just strap all these Negroes up. They'll change them laws before the week is over. When the Black Panthers, watch this, I want you to read, the California legislator passed what was called the Mulford Act. It was a gun control act that decided who could get guns, who couldn't get guns, what could be in your background, what couldn't be in your background. It was the first time in history that the National Rifle Association, the NRA, supported restrictive gun legislation, all because black folk had the nerve to get strapped. Look at your neighbor and say, neighbor, go get strapped. Amen, somebody. Y'all gonna say Bishop told us to get strapped. I said it. Go get strapped. It just got real quiet up in here. But y'all already know I'm a triple P. Amen. Y'all know what a triple P is, right? A pistol packing preacher. Amen, somebody. Thank you, Jesus. to Lodabar. Your work's not done just because you made it to the palace. Oh, bless the name of the Lord. But you've got a responsibility to help somebody else make it across. Thank you, Jesus. Don't pull up the ladder because you climbed to the top. Don't blow up the bridge because you made your way across. Thank you, Jesus. But reach your hand back down the ladder and pull somebody else up out of Lodabar. Thank you, Jesus. 90.7 WPCC. Good morning and welcome to the Spoken Word. I'm your host, Bishop Talbert Swan II. And as usual, we'll be telling it like it is through cultural idioms and nuances that shape the order, ethos, and chaos of the African American experience. Words have their own vitality. They shape their own consciousness and create their own context for interpreting social and spiritual reality. The spoken word contains the power to reshape the landscape of society. 2 minutes past the hour of 9 a.m. I want to thank my friend Mr. Kenneth Barnett for bringing us up until the 9 o'clock hour with The Promise. You can hear The Promise every Monday morning from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m., bringing you the best in gospel music. A good way to start out your Monday morning. A great way to start out your week. And I hope you all had a wonderful, fantabulous, terrific Thanksgiving week. But you know what? It's right back at it. It's right back at it. Hope y'all didn't go out and spend all your money on Black Friday and get trampled in the stores or anything like that. And you put your Thanksgiving food away. It's not supposed to last this long, y'all. You ain't supposed to be having leftovers on Monday. You know, Saturday, Sunday cutoff. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed yourselves. Listen, last week, it was a couple of days after there was a threat to a synagogue in New York. And literally days after the threat to that synagogue, the New York legislature and the governor signed into law a hate crimes bill. Now, on the surface of it, that's not a bad thing. Here's what the problem for me and for many others is. If you can pass a hate crime legislation in 4 days after you arrest 2 white men for planning an attack, planning an attack. Well, let me say it again, planning an attack on a Jewish synagogue, then we have the right to ask the question, why, when 10 black people were murdered at Tops Supermarket in Buffalo, New York, the same state, there was no legislative action at all? And that happened in May. June, July, August, September, October, November, and we're now in December. So 7 months. And no legislative action on hate crimes legislation after 10 black people were murdered in New York by a racist gunman, an obvious hate crime because he's been charged with it. But 4 days after white men are arrested for planning an attack on a Jewish synagogue,
and we get immediate 4-day legislative action that gets signed into law by the governor. Yeah, we're going to talk about the tolerance of anti-black hate crimes, okay? The tolerance of anti-black hate crime, because we got a right to ask the question, why didn't anti-black hate crime spark legislative action like hate against Asians, like hate against Jewish folk, and the highest levels of hate crimes are against black people? We're going to deal with it today. Tell a friend, tell somebody. The bishop is on the air, 413-337-1867. My last day in the man cave. Next week, I will be, actually this Friday, I'll be back in the radio station. I'm not looking forward to having to get out the house again. Walking downstairs to the man cave for 2 years. Oh, man. Yeah, I'm going to miss it. Anyway, tell a friend, tell somebody. The bishop is on the air. Rep your city, rep your town. Let me know where you're chiming in from. We'll take a quick, short spoken word break, and we'll be right back. Don't y'all go nowhere, okay?
I look in the mirror and I like what I see. A strong, beautiful black woman staring back at me. One who's seen a lot of pain and had her share of sorrow, but who never gave up hope for a brighter tomorrow. I've been lied to, cheated on, and stolen from and hit. But it just made me stronger, and I refuse to quit. That's right. And though I've been tempted, I refuse to stoop to their level. Don't go down. I rose above that nonsense and made a liar of the devil. All right now. The devil who said I wasn't good enough, cute enough, or worthy of love, I kicked his butt with divine power from above. Power that says I can do all things through Christ, which strengthens me and brought me out of darkness so that I could see that I'm smart, I'm beautiful, I'm a child of the King. Abundant love for me, He came to bring. Oh yes, when I look in the mirror, I love what I see. She's looking good. That strong, beautiful black woman, that woman is me.
The essence of life is growth, but the essence of growth is change. The being in the road would be the end of the road if you refuse to change. Reach a little higher, reach a little higher, dig a little deeper, dig a little deeper, go a little further, go a little further. Come on, come on, come on. Reach a little higher, come on, yeah. Dig a little deeper, dig a little deeper, go a little further, go a little further. Come on, but don't stop. The essence of life is growth, but the essence of growth is change. The being in the road will be the end of the road if you refuse to change. Your life will never change until you get disgusted with where you are. Whatever you don't hate is what you tolerate. You must learn from the past, plan for the future, and live what you got. For it is your daily routine that determines your success or failure in life. It's the choices that you have made up until this point that will determine the rest of your life. So break the cycle that doing enough is simply good enough. You only get out what you put in, so don't settle for the crumbs when you can have a whole loaf. So push yourself beyond your limitations. Come on. Reach a little higher, reach a little higher, dig a little deeper, dig a little deeper, go a little further. Don't stop, don't stop. Come on, reach a little higher, reach a little higher, dig a little deeper, dig a little deeper, go a little further, go a little further. Don't stop, don't stop, don't stop, don't stop. So you gotta break the routine of trying to beat the system. Manipulators will always try to bypass the process for the quick progress. There are no shortcuts to success. There are no elevators to the top. You gotta take it one step at a time. You gotta break the routine of allowing others to get into your head and control who you are and where you're going. You see, when you're about the positive, you're gonna always have haters. But don't let your haters push you down, let your haters push you forward to the next level. So when people show you who they really are, don't perceive them to be something else that they're not. See, a zebra does not change his stripes. So you gotta keep pushing yourself to the next level. Yeah, there you go. Come on. Be a little deeper. Come on. Yeah. Go a little further. Go a little further. Come on. Don't stop. Come on. Yeah. Reach a little higher. Reach a little higher. Be a little deeper. Dig a little deeper. Go a little further. Go a little further. Come on.
Don't stop.
You gotta understand the greatness is the nature that you were born out of. You'll never discover your greatness without hard work.
Good morning.
Greatness says more about who you are and what you expect for yourself. And greatness will always attract greatness. Show me your
K.A. Pullings.
Show you the future. You just
Good morning.
You're just a step away.
You're just a step away.
You're just a step away. Don't ever give up. Come on. You're just a step away.
Oh, yeah.
You're almost there. Come on. You gotta push yourself beyond your limitations.
Houston.
You see, there's no
in the
mountain
building.
Too high, no valley too low. You can go
Yes.
where you wanna go. It's all in the power of your imagination.
Jacksonville, Florida. Up in the spot, y'all.
Stretch yourself. Take yourself
Don't give
to
up.
the next level. Come on, come on, come on. Reach a little higher. Dig a little deeper.
Go a little further.
Come on, come on, come on.
Don't stop. Atlanta
Reach a little higher.
in the building.
Dig a little deeper. Go a little
Hartford,
further.
Connecticut up in here.
Come on,
Infield.
come on,
There's a blessing waiting on you right around the corner.
come on.
Springdale, Maryland is up in here. Rep your city, rep your town.
Go a little
Let me know where you're chiming in from. I know the field is up in here.
Don't stop until you
Fairburn, Georgia is in the building.
get your dream. Till you get your
Don't
dream.
stop.
Come on.
Where y'all at YouTube? Where y'all at Instagram?
Stop until you get your dream. Don't
Yeah.
get your dream. Come on, yeah. Don't stop. Come on, come on.
Rep your city, rep your town. If you're in the Twitter space, put it in the comment section. Rep your city, rep your town. Let me know where you're chiming in from.
Don't stop. Come on.
Richmond, Virginia,
Come on.
checking in.
Come on. Yeah.
Don't stop.
Yeah. Yeah. What you make in a year, you gonna make it a month.
Yeah.
What you make in a month, you gonna make it a week. And what you make in a week, you gonna make
90.7
blessings are coming your way, baby. Come on.
WTCC. Oh, yeah. Bishop Swan in the building on this beautiful Monday after the Thanksgiving holiday. I got Tennessee up in here. I got San Diego, California up in the building. I got New Jersey in the building. Yes, rep your city, rep your town. Let me know where you're coming in from. I got New York, Virginia, Georgia, Florida, Connecticut. Yes, yes, yes. Anybody from overseas, rep your city, rep your town. Let me know where you're chiming in from. You're listening to the spoken word. Bishop Talbert Swan the second with you, coming up at 10 o'clock. We've got, I'm having a senior moment. We got Justice and Flow up in here. I see you. I see you, New York City, up in the Twitter space. I see Kansas City, Missouri in the Twitter space. I see Polk County, Florida up in the Twitter space. Rep your city, rep your town. Champaign, Illinois. Yes, go get strapped. Yes, 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 yes. Rep your city, rep your town. Let me know where you're chiming in from. So listen, I kind of put it out there last week when it happened. And I'm underscoring it. I know, there's gonna be those who are gonna accuse me of being anti-Semitic, whatever you want to call it. But listen, Listen. Highlighting disparities is not anti anything. It's just being truthful. I keep telling y'all, truth is not hate. Okay? Truth is not hate. All right? Um, and it's a fact. We had two horrific, one horrific hate crime. Somebody went into a bar in Colorado Springs, opened fire. I see New York City open fire, killing 5 people. And then you had white evangelical preachers who were praising it, which is a shame. I don't care what you dislike about someone's lifestyle, or whatever you want to call it. You don't praise the taking of life. Imagine for a moment, for you crazy white evangelicals, and this is why I know they don't really read the Bible. Because the Bible said, in that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. In other words, he loved us so much that in spite of our depraved lifestyle, he was still willing to sacrifice his life for our redemption. Imagine if he had the attitude some of these white evangelical preachers have, that the people in Colorado Springs deserved to die because they were gay. Imagine if God said, y'all deserve to die if you live in any kind of way that displeases me. He would be striking us all dead, left and right. I mean, God just would be walking throughout the earth, striking people dead. But no, Scripture teaches that while we were in sin, he died for us. He sacrificed his life so that we could be reconciled. So I don't know what Bible y'all are reading that people who live whatever kind of way deserve to be shot and murdered. That's sick. And that's the reason why I say their religion is not Christianity. Their religion is white supremacy. Because that's the only way that makes sense, is if your religion is white supremacy and not Christianity. So we had that incident happen, and I had to take that sidebar just to put that in there. And then we had the threat of a attack on a Jewish synagogue. And here's the thing. I believe that legislative action should take place to try to stem the tide of hate crimes. I'm in support of that. I'm in support of police reform legislation. The George Floyd Justice in Policing Act that never passed. So don't get me wrong. I am not against the state of New York passing hate crime legislation. But I have to question the impetus behind it, the catalyst for it, and the timing of it. I have to question how come it took 4 days after white supremacists were arrested for planning an attack on a Jewish synagogue. 4 days, legislative action signed into law by New York governor. 4 days after arresting white supremacists for planning, and not attacking, not killing anybody, planning an attack on a Jewish synagogue. Okay? Yet, 6 months earlier than that, in May, in the same state, New York, in Buffalo, 10 black people were actually murdered. 3 others injured in an executed attack on black people who were targeted by a white supremacist. So why was there no immediate legislative action by the state of New York, its governor? Why was nothing signed into law following the murder of 10 black people in New York? But immediate action took place for the planning of an attack on a Jewish synagogue. Don't y'all see that disparity? Stevie Wonder can see that. Ray Charles can see that disparity. Don't sit here and tell me, Brother Swan, you're being anti-Semitic. Stop it. You're being anti-black if you can't see there's a problem. When it only takes 4 days to go into action and sign a law, when there's a threat against the Jewish community, but no legislative action that takes place at all after 10 black people are actually murdered. So don't try to gaslight me. Try to tell me I'm being anti anything. I'm just laying it out there. I'm asking the questions. I want to know why there's such a tolerance for anti-black hate crimes, which outnumber all other hate crimes in America. When that terrorist opened fire at that supermarket in Buffalo, killing 10 people, wounding 3 more, that violence was shocking in its magnitude. But it wasn't shocking that he targeted black people living in one of Buffalo's blackest communities. And he live streamed it. Okay? I mean, the reality is what it is. That the numbers of hate crimes against black people outnumber those against any other demographic. Yet, it seems like the slightest increase or the threat of hate crimes against other demographics catalyzes immediate legislative action. Yet the continual rampage of hate against black people does nothing to light a fire under anybody to do anything. Why is that? Let me get Matt in the Twitter space. Matt, you got the microphone. (413-337-1867) if you want to chime in. Matt, you got the mic. All right, Matt going once. All right, Matt doesn't want to talk to me today. Let me get Benny Lee in here. Benny Lee.
Good morning, depending on where you're at.
Good morning, sir.
Florida, 25 Eastern time. How everybody doing? Definitely thank you for having this space, brother. And I mean, it's the same old song, man. To be quite honest, man. from what I see, it just clearly shows that, ultimately we're still without power.
Mm-hmm.
The Jewish community, they have power. They even have a homeland to be undergirded with, which is Israel, of course, right? They have a nation to back them up, right? I still liken us to orphans, as African diasporas until we really embrace our homeland and really reconnect, and not to abandon what we have here, but to also build each other up, all over, and even more centrally in Africa. But yeah, to me, it just clearly shows that we're without power, even though we have a lot of, buying power. However, it's being managed. That's another question. That's another conversation to be had. But clearly, the Jews have power and are respected. But us as African diasporas, I mean, we're seeing the same thing. So, but I would also just like to bring another perspective in house. Just really taking a deep look in the mirror and asking how deep the Stockholm syndrome goes, because I think that's a bigger problem as well. If we really, look at ourselves in the mirror and really start seeing the hatred within ourselves, how much we dislike ourselves, through so many things that I could just bring up, and hopefully that can be a bridge to start loving one another and organizing and, really loving ourselves. I always quote, Marcus Garvey, emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our mind. And what we see here, with, these Christian nationalists, I think Frederick Douglass said it best too. Misquoting him, or I might butcher him a little bit, but he was saying essentially the Christianity of this land is not the Christianity of the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
He clearly saw that, decades ago.
Yeah.
So I would say that briefly, not to, lock up the whole, floor and stage, but yeah, I could go on and on about that.
All right. Well, appreciate you, brother. 413-337-1867. Let me get Rashid in the Twitter space. Rashid, you got the microphone. Unmute your mic there, Rashid. We're talking about the tolerance of anti-black hate crimes. Tolerance of anti-black hate crimes. All right. Rashid.
Yes.
Go right ahead.
Yes. When we continue to perpetuate this racist animus, racist contempt towards one another, it's going to continue to get out of control because we don't want to educate ourselves upon who we are. There's one thing that James Baldwin has said some time ago when he said the paradox of education is precisely this: that as one begins to educate, will become conscious. One begins to examine the society he's been educated in. And when we start to do that, you'll see the change, that paradigm shift in our community to educate ourselves on who we are. It's a lot of opposition now towards one another. I don't care if you Christian, Muslim, Hebrew, Israelite, Pan-Africanist, Black conscious community. We always attacking one another if we don't have the podium or have the rod in our hands to push our agenda or push our ideology out there to be first. And if everyone is not on board with you, you automatically come to the defense. Well, if I'm not the leader, I'm going to sabotage it for others. And I understand that some may not perceive it to be that way, but that's what it is.
Yeah.
Sometimes we don't even need to have an opposite opinion all the time. The same thing with Kyrie Irving. Barkley and Shaq didn't have to say anything. Stephen A. Smith didn't have to say anything.
Nothing.
They didn't have to say anything. But this is the mindset. They need to be heard. And even not only do they, when you deal with certain pastors or certain rabbis, they don't need to say anything.
Not only do they want to be heard, they want to be heard siding with our oppressors.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's so frustrating because we all have getting a bird's eye view on what's going on. Everything has been transpired right for us to see it, and we still don't see it.
Yeah. Yeah.
We still don't see it.
Absolutely.
We don't even want to acknowledge. I'm like, man, I was just looking at something the other day. I was like, wow, black people still believe he's the right Jesus. I'm like, good grief. It's 2022 now.
Listen.
We still believe that.
That's an argument that I just throw that out there every now and then because I know it's going to spark debate, and it's always interesting to see the black people who jump on the bandwagon with it doesn't matter what color Jesus was, and all of that kind of foolishness.
Because it goes back to their cognitive dissonance now. It goes back to that.
Yeah.
But I don't want to continue to talk, but y'all listen want to talk and chime in. But it just, I think we have to go back and look at the education and how we've been educated and become conscious, but not to the extent woke conscious where you have to be in opposition to everything.
Right.
But a conscious of substance, a conscious of truth.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate you, brother. 413-337-1867. I see my frat brother Leonard Epps got a good point. How long it took for anti-lynching legislation. My wife and I watched the movie Till over the Thanksgiving weekend about the lynching of Emmett Till. And it was during that time where the NAACP and other entities were pushing for anti-lynching legislation, which just got passed earlier this year. So you do the math. Emmett Till got murdered 67 years ago. It took 67 years to make lynching black people a federal crime. 67 years. Think about how crazy. And wait a minute, let me back up. It's not even that it made it lynching black people a crime, because the bill that finally passed was general. It applies to white folks and everybody. But it took 67 years. Now think about that for a minute. Let's do the math. 4 days in New York to pass legislation because someone was planning to attack a Jewish synagogue. 4 days. 67 years to pass anti-lynching, with thousands of black people who are being lynched all over the nation. That's what I'm talking about when I talk about America's tolerance for anti-black hate crimes. It's not important. There's no need to move into legislative action because we don't care about black people being lynched, brutalized, murdered, dehumanized, you name it. And that is borne out every time we see the slightest increase, even after the start of the pandemic, when there was an increase in anti-Asian hate crimes. Anti-Asian hate crimes increased by about 110. And I'm not embellishing this. Literally, anti-Asian hate crimes went up from 2020 to 2021 from 150 some odd reported to the FBI to 279. And that sparked the COVID-19 hate crime bill. In the same year, The reported hate crimes against African Americans, as reported to the FBI, went up from 1,900 something to over 2,800. So we had an increase of 900 hate crimes against black people, an increase of 120 hate crimes against Asian Americans. But it was the hate crimes against Asian Americans that sparked federal legislation. Let that marinate for a moment. Let that sink in for a minute. I got another one for you, in case you haven't been paying attention. All right, let me get Israd. Is that your name? Irshad. You got the microphone.
Yeah, what I want to say is violence only understands violence.
Okay.
If that makes sense. The reason that in itself, as well as, hold on, sorry.
Yes, sir. Did I lose you, brother? All right, I got to move on. I can't do the dead air. Let me get Theodore up in here. Theodore, you got the microphone. You're in the space. Holla at your boy.
Hello?
Yes. Good morning.
Yes, how you doing today?
I'm good. You?
Doing pretty good. So one of the things that I would like to say, I think that we have to understand as African Americans who we are,
Mm-hmm.
being the children of Israel. We have to get back to the Bible, get back to the Word, understand who we are as a people, understand that this new land that we live in, that we're here based off the curse, and that we were never meant to be happy in this land. And that's what we really have to understand, that this is
Now, what curse are we?
Deuteronomy.
What curse particularly are you talking about? I'm familiar with the chapter. Blessed shall you be in the city, blessed shall you be in the field, cursed shall you be in the city, cursed shall you be in the... What specific curse are you speaking of, though?
So the curse that stood out to me because I wouldn't say that. The curse that stood out to me, I'm not gonna say new to the Bible, but I found I went in seek of God not too long ago. So I'm really taking the time out myself to just understand myself and understand. And once you know where you come from, once you have roots, then you're what's a tree without roots,
Mm-hmm. Right. So
our history is more than landing here. I'm saying, off the ship, and I'm saying, from slavery to now, like, our history is a lot more than that.
Mm-hmm. Of course, our history started long before the days of slavery, but I want to push back a little bit, because there's a dangerous theological perspective that was pushed by white so-called Christians in order to justify the enslavement of black people, the dehumanization of black people. Was they took the Bible and they used that same language. They didn't use that particular scripture that you reference in Deuteronomy, but they referenced scripture where Noah was drunk, laying outside in the vineyard, and his son found him. And Noah says to his son, to Ham, "Cursed be Canaan," which was Ham's son, and white folks took that scripture to say that black people descended from Ham. That's the curse of Ham. Therefore, black people are cursed. Therefore, the subjugation and dehumanization that they go through is justified by the Bible, and it's God's desire for their plight in life, and that's a dangerous bastardization of Scripture. So I'm very, my antennas go up when I hear that thing about us being
we are
cursed.
we are not the descendants of, we are not the Canaanites. We come from Shem.
Mm-hmm.
That's the difference.
And I want to.
I was taught in the church that we are the Canaanites.
I wrote a book entitled "No More Cursing: Destroying the Roots of Religious Racism."
Yes,
and I'd encourage people to get that book that really deals with this whole thing about black people being cursed.
So we have to get rid of religion and understand that the Bible is not a book based on religion, but religion was made from the Bible. The Bible is a history book of who we are as a people, who we how we are supposed to live, and what's there to come. We are not the Canaanites. We come from Shem. We are the tribe of Judah, and that's what black people need to understand. And we have to get into the Bible. We break the 10 Commandments. We have been taught to break the 10 Commandments, to continue to place ourselves in to not be with close to God, and we really have to understand that book, that the Torah, which is really, I mean, it's the same books. It's the same books. It's just the translations.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the translations, but that is the oldest version of the book. But understand that book was made. That book, that's our book, and it's not. It was adopted. But the one way to hide the truth from somebody is I can adopt it myself, and it's ours. It's not yours. It's ours, and this is something that we, you know what I'm saying, we all, you know what I'm saying, and it's not. And this is, I mean, if I must speak my truth, like I really see how much the music the music that is pushed, the way we are portrayed on TV, the way that we just been, and this is of our fault too, because we have to, like I said, we have to first know who we are, and then we have to know who you are is one thing, but doing the work is where it really come into play.
Yes, sir.
Like we are really the descendants of Shem, and I believe that until we come together, I mean, until we learn the word,
mm-hmm.
and really live by the word, and not all these outside distractions.
So in essence,
racism, all this, everything, all of that is distractions.
In essence, what you're saying,
we have to understand who we are.
Yeah, brother. In essence, what you're saying is a number of the ills that are on black people are of our own doing because of our own disobedience, and so I understand that completely. Thank you for your commentary. Appreciate you. Let me get. I thought I had Rashid in here already, but in case I didn't, let's do this again. Rashid, is this the second go round, or did I not get you in the first time? All right. All right. 413-337-1867 is the number if you want to chime in on the conversation, talking about the tolerance of anti-black hate crimes. Um, for several years in the last decade, states with large black populations like Mississippi and Alabama have reported hate crime numbers um, in the low single digits because you have racist police departments in those states that refuse to report to the FBI their hate crime stats because they don't want you to know what's happening to black people. So the irony of this is even with low reporting and underreporting, the number of hate crimes against black people far outnumbers that of any other demographic. Even with states like Mississippi, Alabama, and Florida. Matter of fact, Florida reported 0 hate crimes for multiple years. I mean, come on. Are you serious right now? Just so they could lowball specifically the number of hate crimes against black people because they don't want you to know that it's dangerous to be black and live in their states. So they underreport or don't report their hate crimes. Imagine that. Florida, out of all places, the stand your ground state, reporting 0 hate crimes. Come on, man. It's not even remotely realistic. Cinnamon, you got the mic. Cinnamon girl, unmute your mic. Good morning. Good morning. Okay, well, your mic's unmuted. You're not saying anything. Going once, twice. All right, you don't want to say anything. I heard something happening in your background, so let's get Benny Lee in here. Benny Lee, you got the mic.
Yeah, man. Just to quote a tweet that you had tweeted, you know, how the framer of Emmett Till still roams free today.
Right.
And we know who she is.
Right.
And we know where she is.
Right. And here's the kicker to that. We didn't expect Trump's Department of Justice because when the book came out, when she made that admission, she admitted that she lied on Emmett Till, and not only did she lie on Emmett Till, which got him lynched, she lied in court to protect his murderers. She admitted that, and so when Biden took over in January 2021 and appointed Merrick Garland over the Department of Justice, the DOJ under a Democrat administration is saying they have no interest in prosecuting her. And the state of Mississippi has no interest in prosecuting her. Now, do you think for a minute, if she were black and had been responsible for the murder of a white boy, that either one of them would, or let's say she was a Nazi war criminal? I mean, because they're still hunting them down if there are any left. They don't care how old they are. But imagine, and then black people, gung ho about Democrats this, Democrats that, and yet Biden's DOJ will not prosecute the woman responsible for the murder of Emmett Till.
There's so many receipts that we can pull. Like, ain't nobody snuffing out the KKK, but everybody's worried about, black extreme, quote unquote, black extreme groups, which we will talk about that. You just
black identity extremists.
Mm-hmm. And we're gonna talk about that, but put a pin in it. I mean, The Biden administration had the blackest inauguration. It was blacker than Barack Obama's inauguration. And the first thing that he tries to put into action was for social justice of every minority group except
black people. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he walked right into the White House and protected.
Slap in the face than that.
He walked in the White House and protected LGBTQs, hunchbacks, one-legged, two-legged people, everybody but us.
Everybody but us, and had the blackest inauguration that you can have.
Yeah, yeah.
It was the biggest slap in the face, and it's again same old song, nothing new. And yet we're supposed to be complicit, right? I mean, us black people, we know better than to do something like January the 6th.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We know, we would. Come on, man! Y'all killing police and everything. Y'all back in the blue and killing them at the same time.
Right, right.
You know what I'm
saying? And they're slow to prosecute these folks.
And if they the only time somebody getting shot is when they're coming close to a congressman.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They're gonna protect that.
Well, first of all, we know those cops would have been in riot gear, and they would have had the backup of DC and Virginia and everybody in the region if they had even heard that 100 black people were showing up at the Capitol.
Man, look here, you wouldn't have. Look here. It would have been a lot more smoke in the city than that. But you got white people in jail talking about something they eat vegan and they demand to eat the way they demand to eat, or they won't eat, and you're actually bending to these people's white supremacy, like they privileged.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like it's crazy. But I also want to just kind of dovetail something that was said by a young man named Theodore. He's obviously a black Hebrew Israelite. I put in the comment section some content for people to go over from a true Christian perspective, what black Hebrew Israelitism is all about. Don't fall for it, because Deuteronomy 28, all that Old Testament stuff, that was for the nation of Israel. We are Africans. A lot of similarities and just as much distinctions. Okay, so go back, like I said, go in the comment section. I already tweeted a post from Facebook that's given a lot of content from very sound Christian teachers about black Hebrew Israelites. Just have an open mind about it, and take notes and follow those teachers if you feel like you heard good information. But let's get back to the black hate crimes, like you was like the heading is talking about. No action.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
When it comes to black hate crimes, it's just, again, no power. We're without power, mm-hmm. and we're without organization.
And it's so insulting. I mean, when the numbers and the facts are glaring and in your face, when you can see that for the same year where hate crimes went up for Asian Americans from 150 to 279, and for black people from 1900 to 2871, and it's the hate crimes against Asians that sparked the COVID-19 hate crime bill, that's a slap in black people's face. It's like, what are you talking about? And then when this is another thing that people don't understand. When the 10 black people got murdered at Top Supermarket in Buffalo, the murderer left a manifesto. And in his manifesto, he mentioned Jewish people. Okay? 4 days after the Buffalo massacre, led by Debbie Wasserman Schultz, the House of Representatives passed an anti-Jewish hate resolution sparked by the words in his manifesto. How insulting is that to black people that 10 black people got murdered, but you're passing anti-Jewish hate legislation? That's crazy to me.
Yeah. I mean, the Charleston Nine, Charlottesville. We can go on and on and on and on about this stuff. It gets traumatizing. It's tiring because we keep talking about it, and talking about it becomes traumatizing in and of itself because the needle is not moving.
Right.
That's what it all boils down to. We could talk about, we could be as informed, white people could be as white, guilt, and sympathetic and try to educate themselves as much as possible. That's cool. Awareness is the first step. But at the end of the day, if the needle is not moving, like we're just receiving more and more abuse without any type of recovery and therapy from the hundreds of years of abuse that we've received. Resilient is all get out, and we're expected to be sane and productive citizens,
Right.
contributing to a country that was designed to kill us and to keep us docile. And we go for it. Tulsa, Oklahoma, that's the first terrorist attack on U.S. soil. Rosewood, we could keep going on and on and on, right? But how is the needle moving?
Absolutely.
At the end of the day, that's because the Jewish needle is moving in 4 days.
Yeah, 4 days. Get that. 4 days for a threat, for a plan. But 6 months earlier, black people were actually murdered. Thank you, appreciate you. Man, he's right. The needle's not moving like it ought to be moving. 3 minutes left in the spoken word. Coming back with Justice and Flow after show. If you're looking for a place to worship, check us out at the Spring of Hope Church of God in Christ. 35 Alden Street, Springfield, Massachusetts, 11 o'clock a.m. every Sunday. Prayer, praise, and preaching is happening in the place. So check us out. We live stream as well. Want to shout out my brothers of Iota Phi Theta Fraternity Incorporated who showed out in numbers on yesterday for our Brown and Gold Interfaith Fall Fellowship. Want to shout out my brothers, Pastor Robert Haygood, Pastor Anthony Roberson, student minister Johnny Muhammad, who were participants in our speaking program. Wonderful time of fellowship, inspiration, and empowerment on yesterday. Our Wednesday night Bible study is at 7:30 p.m. Streaming virtually. Let me see if I can squeeze somebody else in before I got to transition. Let me see if I can squeeze in Goddess Michelle. Goddess, you got the microphone, and you got about a minute. Not, we'll have to go on the other side.
Peace and blessings.
All right, how you doing?
I'm well. It's good versus evil right now. When it comes to Black Americans, the agenda is to kill us off, anyways. And they want to kill off all Black people on the planet, or take as many with them as possible because they're dying off. However, over here, this is our land, and the agenda has always been to just kill us off, pick us off slowly, and that's what they're doing.
Absolutely. I don't disagree with you. I got to move. I got to sign off of WTCC and come back with the spoken word. Those of you who are listening over the radio, until the next time I talk to you and you talk to me, always remember God loves you and so do I. Check us out on Friday. We'll be back in the radio station for the Black Love Experience on Friday at 9 o'clock. Those of you who are on social media, stick with us for the after show coming right up. Peace. All right. Back with you. Overdrive. After show. After flow. Ah. Welcome to those who are sticking and staying and sticking, who are still with us in the social media space. Appreciate you. What's happening?
Nothing much.
All right, all right, all right.
Good
Good
morning,
morning,
Mother
Mother
Queen.
Queen.
I was looking for the usuals. Good morning, Mother. I was listening to your show this morning, like I always do. I did not plan anything, and I don't plan on scheduling any of the upcoming shows until we figure out what's gonna happen when you go back to the studio.
I'm
'Cause
not looking forward to. I was told today.
yeah, but
Uh,
I don't know. I don't know how that's gonna impact justice and flow. That's what I.
yeah, no,
Good
I get.
morning, Sean, brother Dot. How you doing? Good morning. I believe it's Sister Pullins. I'm not sure. I think so. Yes, Sister Pullins. Good to see you. Good to see you and hear from everybody. Listen, Bishop. You got some comments that you need to check out.
No, I
Um,
do. I?
yeah, to continue the conversation. I think we should continue the conversation today. Good morning, everybody. Post Thanksgiving week. I always have the hardest time bouncing back to normal after Thanksgiving because Thanksgiving has become my favorite holiday. It was my favorite holiday, not because of the history, y'all. I'm smart enough to know the difference. Just like with most things, black people had to take it and make it their own, within our culture and within our family dynamics. So, Thanksgiving is my favorite holiday because of everything that it meant to my family and all the fun memories that I have around Thanksgiving holidays as a child, as a girl. All of my grandparents are ancestors now, and my parents are ancestors now, and I have one brother that is an ancestor now. And so the holidays, like most of us, I'm sure, can be very challenging, but can also be a lot of fun, bringing back and a lot of memories. So I have the hardest time on Monday on the Monday following Thanksgiving, because I got to get back to normal, right? We got to go back to work. We got to go back, to normal. So, it's like I feel like I'm in a time zone or something, you know, like what is it? Um, Beam me up, Scotty. Kind of like I have to jump into a machine and go back to another way of life, if you will. But happy post Thanksgiving.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, you wasn't paying no attention to me. But anyway, yeah, I this comment that's up right now.
And everything you said, so hush.
No, you wasn't paying any attention to me, but
I
that's
heard
okay.
everything
But
you
but
said.
I love this comment that Brother Grady put up. Not that the fact that he did say this, and I know it's almost is the word heretical, to say something like we're a little bit bigger than the Bible. But if you're looking at the Bible as a historical, you know, um, piece of literature, I get what he's saying. I get what he's saying. But he also kind of expounds on the fact that we're not descendants of Seth nor Ham.
Well, it's not Seth. Anyway, it was Shem was what the guy was saying.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, okay.
Um, but
And
that
I know that
well. First, let me clarify because I didn't say we were descendants of Ham. What I said was there's a theological perspective that has been promulgated
hmm
justify the mistreatment of black people, where they said that Noah cursed Ham,
yeah,
that black people descended from Ham, thus black people are cursed.
hmm
What I wrote about in No More Cursing was debunking that myth.
hmm
So I was not
What was but were you debunking the myth of us being descendants of Ham, or debunking the
I
myth
was debunking all of it.
that Noah cursed Ham?
I was debunking all of it.
Mhm.
That that
Hey,
that
baby.
that that black people just um, came from from one of Noah's sons, um, the Hamitic line, and thus justifying the so-called Hamitic curse, which never existed in the first place. And then, upon me saying that, the brother said, "Well, we didn't descend from Ham; we descended from Shem." So I wasn't
Oh,
promulgating
oh,
either,
okay,
either one of those theories.
okay,
Yeah.
okay. I see. All right. Yeah, but I do kind
Yes,
of.
the way
What
the
do you think about
the
what do
way
you think about his comment though that we're bigger than what the Bible
well,
anyway?
let me put it like this. So let me the two things. One, for those who are trying to understand this whole thing, the the biblical story talks about the destruction of the earth and Noah's family being on the ark and being those who repopulated the earth. That's where the whole um, premise that people descended from Noah's line because no one else existed, according to the biblical record. No one else existed besides Noah and his family. So everyone who existed after that had to descend from Noah and his family. So what they say is he had three sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and that the Semitic people, the Jews, the Arabs, etc., descended from Shem. Black people descended from Ham. Africans, black people descended from Ham, and white folks, Caucasians, descended from Japheth. Now that's the mythology around it. That's where that comes from. So that people have a full understanding of
So
that.
same father, different DNA.
Yeah. Well, that I wouldn't say that, but I'm just saying
Well, that's what I mean. The mythology
that's the mythology
behind it is
around
same father, different DNA.
that's the mythology around where people of different hues um, descended after the flood. Um, as far as the Bible as being bigger than the Bible, well, God is bigger than the Bible. So I agree in concept with what he is saying because God is not constricted or restricted
I
by
agree with
the
that.
Bible. Matter of fact, the Bible says um, in Matthew 28, at the end of his writing, Matthew says, "And there were also many other things which Jesus did, the which the world itself could not contain the books should they be written. So even the Bible says there's so much more to the life of Jesus and to God that the world couldn't contain everything that would be written. So it's admitting that whatever is in this record
Absolutely.
is a snapshot in
Right.
God. And so if we restrict God to the Bible, we're saying that God stopped speaking after those 66 writers stopped writing. And we
Yeah.
also have to remember the way that the Bible was canonized. The folks got together and bartered and bargained and to come to the decision of which books would be included in the canon. There were all kinds of other books that were written by people who had firsthand accounts that weren't included. There was a book that Mary wrote
Well, but it's also all kinds of
because she was a woman
writings
and they
that
didn't
we
want to
have.
hear from her. So they didn't include the book of Mary because they didn't think any books written by women should be in there. So there's all kinds of other accounts that we don't read and we don't consider canonical.
Well, not only that though, not only that, uh, there are all kinds of writings that are God knows how old that we will never find, that we will never unearth. Um, all kinds of God information, if you will, right? That we will never unearth. And I oftentimes think about it like this: that um, we have the Bible, 66 books, and we can't handle that. God knows, God knows if we were, if it was more, because like I said, we're still grappling over, handling the Bible properly, and certainly relaying the Bible properly. But most of us, most Christians, that is, and maybe I'm going to speak about Black Christians. That is our that's the book, the Bible. But we do recognize that there are other books, that we can certainly, read to accompany, the Bible as well.
Well, there are books referenced in the Bible.
Yeah,
They're not included
not included in the Bible,
in
right?
in the book of in Joshua, the 10th chapter. It mentions the book of Jasher,
Mm-hmm.
but Jasher didn't make the cut
Mm-hmm.
to be included in the canon. Yet the Bible mentions Jasher. So are we saying that that those writings are not legitimate because they weren't included? You
Well,
know,
they wasn't included in, what we know as the Holy Bible, but there are apocryphas, right? I believe, I don't remember all of it, certainly, but I believe, like in seminary you find out about other books that were written.
you
um
you
you,
got chronicles that were not there. That's why we got First and Second Chronicles. But there are other chronicles of the
Mhm.
kings of Israel that were
I
not
think I
included
think
in the Bible.
wasn't it like a book or epistle written by Mary? It was
Yeah,
something like
I just mentioned that. Yeah, there was book, but she was a woman, so they didn't include her.
that.
You had the book of Shemaiah the prophet. You had the visions of Edo. Um, there were all kinds of books, and what I'm talking about now are just books that are actually referenced in books that are in the canon.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not even talking about the extra canonical books that are not mentioned in the Bible.
It's
I'm
not
talking
me.
the Acts of Solomon is mentioned in First Kings,
Right.
yet that book is
Right.
not included in the Bible.
Yeah. I oftentimes, even in correlation of our literature, our biblical literature, I oftentimes I think about it like this, like as it pertains to like the service on yesterday. It being an interfaith service, but it was with the Nation of Islam, and the rest of the preachers and speakers were Church of God in Christ. So element of the Black church, if you will, and I oftentimes think about how, and it was mentioned yesterday, how religiously speaking, you hear a lot of division and differences, and and this, that, and the other, and people put God in a box, or they limit God in who he loves, if you will, and who he saves, and who he blesses, and all of that kind of stuff, religiously speaking. And people will use the Bible, their interpretation of the Bible, to do so, right? But I found out through my own walk, kind of like getting back to what Brother Grady said. I found out through my own walk. Once I saw that it was important to transcend religion and to have a relationship with God, that then there's no beginning and there's no ending. That God is so huge, I can't comprehend him. I can't. He's so big. He's so, like words cannot describe how massive he is when it comes to loving his people, and unity, and acceptance, and collective power, and justice. So I think those people that are still stuck in religion or religiosity, those are the people. Okay, getting back to your topic today, those are the people that we're getting frustrated with, because we do understand that God God is so big. He loves all of us. He loves the Nation of Islam. He loves everybody. He loves all of us, and it's not, it's no difference. It's all unity. It's all commonality. Or whatever the case may be. So, it's only until we transcend religion, and we are having a relationship with God, that we start to kind of grow up and mature, and understand that we don't serve an insecure God. So we don't need to get all uptight, around other denominations or other people of faith, and this, that, and the other, if you will. Because
Yeah.
we're bigger than that. We're so big. We're bigger than that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's bigger than that.
Well, what's difficult is Christian dogma
Yes, Brother Mike.
um, has basically closed the minds of people who ascribe to a particular faith. And the problem is that even the Bible says, "Grow in grace and in the knowledge of Jesus Christ." That you should be continually growing. That mind should always be open and willing
See,
to receive new information and expand and correct
that's
and
it.
all of that, because there are a number of things that you were taught in the way that you were taught it that may not be correct, and there may be another interpretation, but dogma insists that we hold fast to our beliefs as the only way, the only possible way, and anything else is to be rejected, and anyone else who believes anything else should be constrained and cast into hell because they don't believe how we believe. And
Right.
it's a dangerous mentality when none of us have ever died and actually seen the afterlife for ourselves to be able to come back and say, well, this is definitely the way that it is.
Hmm.
It's all an act of faith.
Right.
My
Right.
belief as a Christian is an act of faith. Someone else's belief as a Muslim is an act of faith. You know, um, and what I believe is this works for me. I feel a connection with what I believe, and but who am I to say that what you believe? Now, if you believe something that's wacky and off the deep end, and um, that brings harm to people and all of that, then that's one thing. But if you have a belief that that causes you to be a better person, that when you ascribe to tenets about goodness and humanity and all of the things that I believe as a Christian, how do I then get to assign you to hell um, when all of us are simply acting on faith? And I know that's dangerous for a Christian preacher to say, because we're supposed to say, you ain't Christian, you ain't gonna make it in.
Listen, um, which again, I think it's really about transcending, right? And I think it's really about growing and growing up and certainly maturing. Again, you will stay kind of stuck in that dogma if you're not willing to do the work to grow, if you're not willing to do the work to expand, if you're not making sacrifices, and if you're not doing what you need to do to get a better understanding and way of well, in knowledge of God. I think somebody said that in the comments. Like I said, I'm starting to think about it like this, and I said this to Minister Johnny on last night. I can't imagine. I can't imagine my life, right? If I was claiming to be a Christian and in relationship with God, because when you say you're Christian, you're supposed to be in relationship with God. But I was cutting myself out from these very important, vital relationships in my life. So, in other words, Minister Johnny wouldn't be my brother today because I would have been, stuck in that dogma, that limited understanding of who God is. And I would have, cut off any access to me in building a relationship with him. And that man has been my brother ever since the day that I met him. When I got sick with COVID, when he found out about it, I think he found out about it through you. I'm not sure. But the same day, that man made sure that I had some things to take, to certainly help get me through. And he checked on me every day until I came out of COVID. And I was sick with COVID for a while. And so when I think about those kinds of relationships, and I'm close to a couple of women, are really good friends of mine. Some of y'all know them. I've exposed them to you, certainly, on the show, and so on and so forth. When I think about some of these relationships, I got relationships, very close relationships with people of other faiths, of other faiths. Okay. And so when I think about how maybe shallow or depleted my life would be if I served an insecure God or a dogma, a God that was so full of vitriol and dogma that I would be cutting off, beautiful relationships that I have with other people, of other faiths, and I think about that for all of us. Don't don't do that to yourself. You got one life to live. And so
Soap opera.
if your God is insecure, guess what? He may not be God. He may not be God because let me tell you, I can go up in the mosque. I can go up in the synagogue. I can go in the grocery store. I can go anywhere and be fully who I am and free as who I am. And I get the same respect. I get the same love because I also give it. I also give it because my God is secure and my God is big, so I don't put the limits, on God. And I got a real problem with that. I got a real problem with that. And I'm hoping that people understand that it's not about religion for me. Religion can be deadly, and it has been used to divide us. But we got to take the power back. We got to take the power back, and not just in religious sentiments, sin, what's sinful, what's not, what's this, what's an abomination to the, or whatever. But no, if you're a real ambassador of God, if you are in a real relationship with God, it's about unity, it's about collective power, it's about us moving the needle forward as a group of people, that believe in God, that trust in God, that know that God is in control, moving the needle forward for justice, for our people.
Yeah, I see Mike here talking about how religion divides. Let me just push back against that a little bit. It's not religion that divides; it's people that divide. It's people that use religion to
Guys,
divide. And I always use this scenario. Um, if you take a hammer can be a useful tool that depending on what hand it's in, it can be used to hang a picture on the wall. It could be used to build something, to fix something in the hands of the right person. But that same hammer can be used to bludgeon someone to death. So it all depends on whose hands the hammer. You can't say the hammer is evil. The person used it in an evil manner. The hammer is neutral. Um, it depends on the hands it's in. So religion itself is not divisive. It doesn't divide.
well, I understand both of y'all.
But
I
yeah,
do. I understand both of y'all.
I'm
I
just
do. Hold
bringing
up. I
it.
do. I
It
understand
has
both of
been
y'all.
used the way it has been used through the centuries. Yeah,
Absolutely. And I think he agrees with that too. I understand both of y'all, but until I'm with Mike a little bit more, only because until we have taken control of that word, it's almost like the N word, as far as those of us who are Christian or claim to be Christian. That's why I don't like people, Mike. Those are the same reasons, Mike. I don't like for people to call me Christian because of the connotations attached to it in this country or in this world, right? So I'd rather say that I'm in relationship with God. I'm in relationship with God.
I get that. I understand that. But
I'm just saying I understand both of y'all. That's what I'm saying. I understand both of
yeah,
y'all.
I'm talking about from the basic definition of it being a set of beliefs um, that that like me and my brother Johnny, who was at the church yesterday, um, we're not divided. Um, his Islam beliefs and my Christian beliefs don't divide us. However, there are some Christians and Muslims who are divided.
Uh,
You know,
and,
um,
and that's the problem. And
you
that's
know
the problem that I have.
how it's interpreted, how it's understood, and how it's used.
Yeah, and so like I said, that's the problem that I have. And so any God that divides a group of people, a
Yeah, it's
whole race
not God
of
doing the
people,
dividing; it's the
you
people
know,
doing the
to
dividing.
me, that God needs to be questioned. That God needs to be questioned. or you need to be questioned based on your interpretation, certainly of the God that you say you serve. Because like I said, I don't believe the true and living God is insecure. I also don't believe that the true and living God is afraid, you know. So so us getting all uptight and afraid, don't want to fellowship with each other, don't want to pull our collective power together, get on the same page, and all of that kind of stuff. I mean, so again, I agree with Mike in using religion, because religion has always been used, right? Always been used in this country, has always been used in this country to hurt us, to harm us, to divide us, all of that. And we are continually, as those of us of faith, we are continually trying to reverse that, you know. So that's why, I kind of I understand. I understand Mike's point in using certain terminology, and getting a I know I do. I get a little uptight when somebody call me religious. I get very uptight when somebody call me a Christian, because I'm not the same Christian. I'm not a Christian like white evangelicals. I'm not that. I'm not religious like white evangelicals, and and there's some others, but those are probably the more popular uh group. I'm not that. I'm not any of that. But and I could have still been mixed up. I could have still been mixed up had I not did the work to grow and see the difference between what white evangelicals do as Christians, and what me as a black woman that believes in God and has a relationship with God, what I think and what I do, as a black woman of faith.
Yeah, what I don't want to do is concede, um, because folk have perverted something. I think we ought to reclaim it and not concede it. And what I mean by that is is if I'm claiming to be a Christian, I don't want to shed the label of being a Christian because these folks over here who claim to be Christian have bastardized or corrupted the term, um, because of the things they believe and how they live. I want to reclaim it. It's kind of like we had this hashtag going on a couple years ago, hashtag reclaiming MLK, because all of these white folks um, basically tried to sanitize and domesticize the legacy of MLK into this passive, docile person, and they would use his words as a cudgel against black people. Whenever black people would stand up against injustice, they would then quote Dr. King, judge me by the content of my character. Like, and Dr. King wasn't even talking about you crackers. So stop playing. Um,
He
when
talking like that.
hey, well, when Dr. King said, um, he said, I have a dream that my four little children, my four little black children, will not be judged by the color of their skin, their black skin, but the content of their character. White folks took that to say, I, as a white person, should be judged by the content of my character. It ain't had nothing to do with you. He wasn't talking about you. Stop twisting his words.
Yeah.
And so rather than stop using that phrase, we reclaim it for its real meaning. You know, um,
Yeah, but
we do
can
the
you
same thing.
admit to? Can
You
you
know,
admit to
what
though? Can you
I mean,
admit to? Can you admit to though that is trying and difficult, and we got enough trauma that we got to deal with. So I mean, I'm all for, if it's possible, I'm all for reframing and reterming as well. So like I said, I'm good with people calling me a woman of faith, a woman of God. and all of that. But I do. I get a little leery when they call me religious or when they call me a Christian because I want to know what angle that's coming from. I do. So and that's my lived experience. So
Well, I'm gonna claim it. I'm a Christian. You
mhm,
know, um, I'm a Nat Turner kind of Christian. I'm a liberation kind of Christian. Now, if you want to throw some other adjectives or descriptors on there, so it's differentiated from the white evangelical kind of Christian, I don't
mhm.
have a problem with that.
Well,
Uh,
that's what I'm doing out the gate, you know. So that's what I'm doing out the gate. You know, I'm reframing out the gate. I'm reterming out the gate to separate myself from white evangelicals and other like-minded individuals on that side. So and again, I want to make sure that I'm using the kind of terms, that also represent the unity and love and acceptance and embrace of my people, so yeah, regardless of because at the end of the day, and I think Minister Johnny said this too, at the end of the day, um we're all people of God. We may call him by a different name, and even those of us who are uh um Pentecostal, or whatever. We know that God has many names. So, you know, that's another element of this conversation as well. But I wanted to kind of get back to your original conversation about the New York State legislature that was created
mhm.
soon after that horrific. Well, it wasn't
No, what happened was
his plan.
no two white supremacists got arrested because they were planning an attack on a Jewish synagogue.
Hmm.
Nothing had been carried out, and 4 days after they were arrested, the governor was signing legislation, anti-hate crime legislation, into law.
Hmm.
Now, this is the same person who was governor when during the Buffalo massacre.
Hmm.
And so my question is, how come it took 4 days after the threat
Hmm.
of attacking a Jewish synagogue to move swiftly? Because moving legislation is not an easy task. Because it's got to pass the House, it's got to pass the Senate, and then go to the governor's desk. Y'all did that in 96 hours. Y'all said, hold up, you'll threaten the Jewish synagogue, the House, the Senate, all got in line, and the governor signed it into law. That 10 black people were murdered in May. In May, 7 months ago. How come you can do this in 96 hours at the threat of attacking a Jewish synagogue? But black people can actually be murdered and have their families destroyed and have their funerals and all of that. And 7 months later, y'all ain't passed jack to protect black people.
So I this is very interesting to me, and I can't say that I've done any research. I forget the caller's name, but like he said, which I concur. Um, this is traumatizing, and events like this is re-traumatizing. But here's what kind of naturally happened to me when this was brought up and when I heard about this. Um, I'm wondering, like, how it is that other groups, I'm just gonna say other groups, and in this case I guess it would be the Jewish population in New York, that is, because this was state. So in New York, in the state of New York, how it was in unpacking this, right, and dissecting this, how it was, what measures they went through, what process they went through to make that happen so quickly, and if it was legislators, right, which I'm sure it was, that had a hand in making this happen. Let me finish the question, babe, and let me just kind of get the thought out.
Answer it.
Let me just kind of get the thought out. So, if it was legislators that helped to make this happen and happen so quickly, why aren't we holding those same people accountable? Didn't black folk have something to do with them being elected? And why can't why aren't the black people in New York holding them accountable and asking them why you could do this for Jews or other groups or whatever, and you haven't done it for us? And then when depending on what the answer we get, kind of create our strategies again around that. We already know. I mean, like what I'm kind of getting frustrated about is, we're complaining, rightfully so. We are, seeing the contradictions, rightfully so. We're exposing the contradictions, rightfully so. But we're also exposing ourselves to a lot of trauma, and there's no resolutions, and we're not organized, and we're not in place to again hold people accountable or use our collective power to get people out of office or put people in office, do whatever we need to do so that our needs or whatever politically or whatever can be legislated too. So that's just kind of my thought on that. Like, what's the deal? Do we know the process? Did you hear me?
Do we know the process? Which process of passing legislation? Yeah, we know the process. Um, um, here's the and see, this is where the danger of our abusive relationship with the Democrat Party comes in, because this didn't just happen in New York. 4 days after the Buffalo massacre, the House of Representatives passed a resolution condemning anti-Jewish hate crime. Not that that has any teeth; it's mainly symbolic. But the overarching concern is it happened in response to the Buffalo massacre because the murderer mentioned Jews in his manifesto. So for the House of Representatives, which is controlled by Democrats, to pass that resolution, that means a bunch of non-Jewish folks, black folk, Latinos, the whole nine, were on the bandwagon with passing this resolution, and nobody stopped to say, you know what, while this is not a bad thing, 4 days after 10 black people were murdered, maybe we ought to pass a resolution condemning anti-black hate crimes first. Maybe we ought to put this on hold and address the immediate concern, which is 4 days ago, 10 black people were murdered. My problem is, why the hell the whole Congressional Black Caucus didn't say, let's pump the brakes on this and address the anti-black hate crime that just happened. And so we as black people have to have a conversation with our own people, and we have to call all of them to the carpet. We have to say to those black legislators, why? How could y'all let this happen?
Well, that's my point.
I looked at,
That's,
I
that's the
looked at,
reason. That's
I
the reason I'm
looked
saying.
at, I looked at the mission statements of all of the congressional caucuses, specialized congressional caucuses. You have a congressional Asian caucus. You got a congressional Latino caucus. You have a congressional Native American caucus. You got a congressional Black caucus. All of the other caucuses, specifically, the Congressional Latino Caucus, in its mission statement, it talks specifically about advancing the cause of Latino people. Congressional Asian Caucus talks specifically of advancing the cause of Asian Americans. The Native American about Native Americans. It's
They should.
Congressional Black Caucus that is all inclusive, whose mission is to advance the cause of people of color, indigenous people, Native Americans, Latinos, and everybody else. We're the only ones who want to push the cause of everybody instead of pushing the cause of black people.
So that's my point. That's my point. And because we got, I believe that we got to be careful in, well, I don't know if careful is the right word, but I do think that we need to be strategic and mindful in the way that we expose the discrepancies and expose certainly the contradictions, right? Especially when it comes to the political process. And so because I do think to a certain extent that it would be important for those who are enlightened in other groups, because you do have some of those. You do have some Jews that see the contradiction, you know, and see the racism or the anti-blackness toward our people. You do have some white people. You do have some Latinos. You do have some people in other groups that see the racism, the anti-blackness that's being constructed and delivered. So I'm saying that I think what you just said is really important once we expose these things for us to go after our own. Like the Congressional Black Caucus, we should be holding them accountable. Like, how in the world?
We should be replacing most of them.
You know what I'm saying? Like, how in the world are you continuing to let stuff like this happen? And then you got a problem with us, taking issue, with the Democrats, or whatever the case may be, whatever. So yeah, and I do think also that especially when you are exposing stuff like this, and we get all upset, we get all hurt about it. We also need to start, coming up with some resolutions. Like, what can we do? I love the fact that the Black Eagle, that's one of the things that he always challenges his audience with. Like, what can we do? What you gonna do about it? What you gonna do about it? Because us just coming together and complaining and getting upset and getting
Well, I don't.
re-traumatized.
That's all we do.
I'm not saying that's all we do. I'm
No, no.
not saying that's all
I'm
we
just
do. But
saying.
I'm just saying we need to leave with some resolutions.
No, because see, people often say that. Um, you know, like I get people on social media and other places that always say, "Oh, you complain and you complain and you complain." Well, you don't know what I do on a day-to-day basis to empower my community.
Yeah,
You're
but I'm saying,
you're
what can we do about it as a group, as an audience?
you're not with me outside of Twitter or Instagram. So you don't know the fact that my whole life is dedicated to empowering our people and you don't know I sit on the hate crimes task force where I say you don't know I advise the attorney general around issues regarding race. You don't know the voter get out the vote activities that I've been involved in. You don't know the fact that I've worked with legislators on promulgating legislation and all of that kind of stuff, because people just assume that all that there is to you is what they see in certain spaces. But what I think is important about those spaces is oftentimes we don't have spaces for our voices to be heard. We need, I think the complaints, the frustration being released is a healthy outlet, because oftentimes we don't get that opportunity. We don't get it in the mayor's office. We don't get it in the governor's mansion. We don't get it in the public space. We don't get it in the courts. And oftentimes, shows like ours, Twitter Spaces, and these places are the only places that we can breathe out those frustrations about these contradictions that we see happening in society. And so I think it's important that we're able to lodge those complaints and to underscore those contradictions. And yes, we ought to talk about collective solutions as well. But I think we do need to continue those conversations, because and here's the irony of it: as much information that is available out there, people would be surprised at the number of our people who don't know half this stuff happened. A lot of people didn't know that New York passed that anti-Jewish legislation in 4 days after that threat. They don't know that the House of Representatives passed that resolution 4 days after the Buffalo massacre. They don't even know that these things are happening. They don't know the disparity between the rise in hate crimes against Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders and the rise in hate crimes against African Americans in the same year that catalyzed the COVID-19 hate crime bill. They're shocked to find out, wait a minute, there was a higher increase in hate crimes against black people, but they passed the legislation because of that. And sometimes this information is what we need to energize people to actually do something.
Yeah, and all I'm saying, I'm not in disagreement with none of that. And all I'm saying is, I just feel like it's past time for us to also lead people with a strategy. The smallest little thing. So us not, I mean, just having the information again. A lot of times it causes a lot of angst and a lot of stress. Whatever the case may be. But we need to know what to do. A lot of us also don't understand the political process. So I thought that it would be important to figure out how did they make this happen. How did the Jews make this happen? How did the Jewish group make this happen, and so quickly.
Well,
So if we could dismantle that from time to time.
that's cool,
That's
but
information. But I'm just saying, we're in Massachusetts.
but
So
see that,
maybe we could get ahead of it and we could create a legislation here in the state of Massachusetts before something happens.
but
Before
see that's the core of the conversation, that anti-blackness is tolerated because of a mentality in the psyche of American people, both black, white, Asian, Latino, and otherwise, that causes people to act in such a manner. So the reason why the House of Representatives didn't pass an anti-black hate resolution is because they couldn't have passed it. Because the white folks, even the white Democrats, they would not have had enough votes to pass it. They got enough votes to pass the anti-Jewish resolution because of the mentality of the people. And that's what I'm saying when people want to constrain racism to a political party. No, it's not based on a political party. It's based on the psyche and mentality of people in America, regardless of political affiliation. Because if you got enough Democrat votes to have passed that Jewish resolution, you should have had enough to pass an anti-black hate resolution as well, but you didn't, so you never put it on the floor. And that's the problem in America is the tolerance level for anti-black hate in this nation. That's the reality.
So what do we need to do?
We need to keep educating people on why this exists and on how
But
to.
what can we do to resolve it though? What can we do as a people to resolve it?
We got to get rid of the people that are in power. That
There you go. There you go. That's what I'm talking about. We haven't said that. We haven't said that.
have, and that's why I say we have a dangerous, abusive relationship with Democrats. Because when you start talking about getting rid of Democrats, even black people go south on you. So case in point, we've been talking about getting rid of Jim Clyburn. We've been talking about getting rid of Jim Clyburn, but black people are well, hell no, he's not getting rid of Uncle Jim. You must be crazy. Uncle Jim is one of the very people in the Congressional Black Caucus that's the reason why we are where we are right now.
Okay. So what do we do? What do we do with that?
Babe.
No, I'm serious. What do we do with that?
You keep saying, what do we do? I said we got to get rid of people like him. Which
Okay,
means,
I understand that, but
which
you
means,
said that it's black people that's defending him.
yes, there are.
What do we do with that? What do we
We
do
got
with
to
that?
find more black people who won't, who will
Okay,
face somebody else.
so that sounds like a game plan. That sounds like a game plan.
And at the same time, we got to work on the mentality of these step and fetch it Negroes who just want to uphold the system as it is. Or like Killer Mike said, arguing over who got the best massa. My massa better than your massa. My massa Trump. My massa's Biden.
Who got the best master?
Yeah.
That's what Killer Mike said.
A lot of times black people are just arguing over who got the best massa. But we all under oppression. Regardless of which massa we choose.
Okay, so it sounds like the problem is more internal than it is external then.
The problem is that we sitting up here acting like we don't recognize um, racism among our chosen political affiliations. Or we are willing to tolerate it coming from them. And I use this example all the time. Black people went ballistic. Trump is deporting these Haitians. He's racist. Trump deported 6,500 Haitians in 4 years. Biden deported 30,000 Haitians in 1 year. The same people who complained about Trump deporting Haitians didn't say jack about Biden deporting Haitians because racism perpetuated 4 times worse by a Democrat is somehow not racism.
I think what happens is it's after 11 o'clock. It's 11. I think what happens is it's so much going on, and it's been going on for so long. We don't know where to start, and we don't know where to end, and we certainly don't know how to check something off on the list. Like I'm a type A personality. I do my to-do list, and I do my to-do list based on priorities, right? And deadlines. It's so massive for us. We don't know where the priorities are. We don't know how to construct the list. We're so convoluted, and we're so unorganized, as a group of people, and it's like nothing wrong with that list being different, or whatever, as long as the same items are on the agenda, right? It sounds like what you're saying is black people are so disconnected now and so divided now. It's going to be nearly impossible to bring us all together again, to have that collective power. The way you're also suggesting that we've been manipulated in a sense, because at the same time, we've been used, you know, we've been used to fight um voting suppression,
Well, and there's
to
a
fight voting suppression, to get people into office. But at the same time, it's like, for what? Why did we make all of those sacrifices, and why are we continuing to fight for, our right to vote, or whatever, for you to get into office and for you not to, look out for us,
and there's a level of hypocrisy that exists among us at high levels of leadership that trickle down, so that people like me are looked upon as a pariah because of my consistency. And what I mean by that is I'm going to consistently condemn injustice regardless of what political affiliation is in power. And so we have to ask ourselves the question, why are we willing to tolerate something under one scenario and not under another scenario? Case in point, we talked about on the show earlier about Carolyn Dunham Bryant not being prosecuted by Merrick Garland's Department of Justice. Black people condemned um, Bill Barr and Jeff Sessions' Department of Justice for not prosecuting her because they were a Republican administration. Now Negroes is quiet when the Democrats are in power and upholding the same standard as the Republicans. They're saying the same thing the Republicans said. No, she's too old. She's an old white lady. We're not going to prosecute her. We don't care if she's the reason Emmett Till got murdered or that his murderers got off. We're not going to prosecute her. Somehow that's tolerable under a Democrat administration when it was intolerable under a Republican one. That's the inconsistency and hypocrisy in our own community that we need to be challenging.
Right, and like I said, I mean, there you go again, exposing the contradictions, and certainly, the fallacies we keep falling short. I certainly don't understand that. If it's good for the goose, it should be good for the gander. But my point is, as far, just kind of getting back to the original point that I was trying to make about what we're gonna do about it. My point is, whatever topic, your show was about, again, you're exposing a deficit, you're exposing a problem, an issue. When are we going to get to the point, or how can we get to the point to where we stay focused on that and we get to check that off the list? We develop a strategy, we know what we need to do collectively, those of us who are on the same page, which is justice, freedom, liberation, and so that check that off the list.
This is a marathon and not a sprint. And I say that because, case in point, when we went through here in this city trying to change legislation to have a more inclusive form of government in our city in the form of ward representation, it took us 12 years and various strategies in that 12 years, from citizens initiative petitions to bartering and bargaining with the city council, to going around to neighborhood councils, to getting citizen signatures, to filing 2 different lawsuits. And all that time, we had to keep the issue in the public sphere in terms of a conversation piece. We had to keep it in the newspaper. We had to keep it in the conversation. We had to keep pointing out the contradictions that the city council said this but did that. They did this and said that. We had to keep highlighting. We had to keep complaining about it until finally it became a reality. And so we had to employ multiple strategies. Okay, this strategy didn't work. Let's try that one. This law didn't work. Let's file another one. So we had to continually sit back at the table and re-strategize, redouble our efforts, all the while keeping this conversation going, highlighting the contradictions, the inconsistencies, and the hypocrisy. And we got to keep doing that when it comes to these broader issues on the national scale.
I agree with the broader issues, but I'm also saying that everything isn't a marathon. Some things should be a sprint. Some things it should be easier for us to get a strategy together and a better understanding, unity at least, to get it done. And also there should be um other kinds of races where it's time to pass the baton. So I get it. All kinds of races are being formed, but it's some should be sprints. Some should be sprints. In other words, I'm saying we ought to be organized enough to get some things done quickly, or an understanding about quickly, fairly quickly. But I definitely get, others are marathons. I think it just depends on what it is and what we're trying to get done. Hmm.
All right.
Okay. All right. Now, next week, Bishop, I don't care how passionate you are. Don't be yelling at me. Don't be yelling at me. I don't care how passionate you get. I'm gonna let you slide today, but this is it. No more yelling. Hi, Mother Ford. Oh, Mother, you got some good stuff in here. I'm sorry we're not gonna get to it. Thank you, Brother Mike, for all that you put in the comments. Listen, y'all. Thank y'all for listening to the show. We're gonna be doing starting next week. Pray for us, keep justice and flow in your prayers.
All right, y'all. We out. We went overdrive. All right. See y'all next week. Peace.